call this meeting of the Board of Adjustment to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
John Moreland.
Here.
Owen Curley.
Here.
Alexi Gonzalez.
Here.
Jeff Trular.
Here.
Todd Smith.
Here.
Jennifer Williams.
Here.
Matt Metz.
Here.
Thank you. The Board of Adjustment meetings are quasi-judicial in nature. All decisions of the board will be based on competent, substantial evidence, including testimony provided in this meeting. Any person who is not an applicant or agent who wishes to speak will need to fill out a speaker's card located on the side table by the door and turn them into the clerk. Each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak on each item once we open the public hearing. Please refrain from speaking from the audience, and applause or cheering will not be allowed. And lastly, please silence your cell phones. Moving on to approval of minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from our August 15th meeting?
I move to approve the meeting minutes from our August 15th meeting.
Since I wasn't here then.
I wasn't here either. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes approved. Is there any correspondence aside from what was in the packet and what was placed on at our seats? Okay, hearing none. We have no old business, so can we please call the first case of new business?
Board calls BOA 23-100076, property address 3840 Poinciana Boulevard. Motion to consider section 34-337E1E for lot coverage of 40% in lieu of 35% maximum to allow for the addition of a coping-only swimming pool to an existing single-family dwelling for property address 3840 Poinciana Boulevard.
Thank you. As a reminder, each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak once we open the public hearing. Does any board member have ex parte communication on this item?
I've had none.
I've had none.
None. And I've had none. Would the applicant or agent please come forward to be sworn in and give your testimony? And only those of you who will be speaking need to be sworn in.
I'll move back if I push it.
You're fine.
Hi, I'm Maureen Yukocha. This is John Crawford.
Okay, the clerk will swear you in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Okay.
Please state your name and address.
Maureen Yukocha, 3840 Poinciana Boulevard,
And-
Jacksonville Beach.
Perfect. And if you could just, you're welcome to adjust the mic if you need to, but just to make sure the recording picks up.
All
Go
right.
ahead. Can you please tell us the nature of the hardship at your property?
I believe that we needed to request for allowance of 5 feet in lieu, for a lot coverage of 40 is required, and we have 35, if I'm saying it correctly. My husband is handicapped, and he goes to physical therapy 3 days a week to a pool. So this would help with our hardship, and we do have medical records from his office. So that's what we request.
And from what was in our packet from the staff, you are also on an undersized lot. It appears your lot is undersized in width and square footage for your zoning district.
I think it's only 5 feet on one side, I believe. Unless anybody
Okay, we have that your lot is 50 feet in width rather than the 90 feet minimum required. So that's a pre-existing condition of your lot. Any questions for the applicant?
I just noticed through the comments that I know you, again, it's just clarification on your application, you were referencing a coping, but when it was run review through staff, you're actually requesting a full deck. for the purpose of what you mentioned.
Just around the
The
pool.
5 feet, but originally the application just said coping, but when you submitted, it just showed a full deck, which is what we want to see.
Okay.
Just clarification for the
All right,
audience.
I just didn't understand the
Because
term.
typically coping would not require a variance when I read it.
Oh, I see.
Because you put a deck in, that triggers the
Yeah,
variance.
that's your answer.
Thank you. Just-
Have you talked to your neighbors?
Oh, yes. And they're very compliant. Almost all of them do have a pool. But again, they have larger lots and newer homes. And we're on a dead-end street, extremely friendly, wonderful neighbors. And we had asked if anybody was, not in compliance to please let you guys know ahead of time. And so I don't think that you've heard anything, because I think when we get together on the weekends with all the children on the street, everybody said good luck. So we're hoping.
Any questions, further questions for the applicant?
I know this.
You can be seated for now, and I will open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers cards?
No speakers cards and no correspondence directed.
Is there anyone in the audience who has not filled out a speaker's card who wishes to speak on this item? And if so, please fill out a card before you leave. Hearing none, I will now close the public hearing and bring the item back to the board for discussion. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve POA 23-100076. Based on the testimony and evidence provided, the request has met all the standards for variance as outlined in section 34-286 Land Development Code.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I just have one question, and that's for the staff. The variant, the lot coverage includes the decking, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great.
That's what said, the application said coping only when I read it.
That's right.
That's why I want to make sure it's on public record that it was include all that space.
Yep.
I guess they also, everything is a full access, so there should be no additional requests come forward for access to the deck as well. I guess I'm glad they covered all that. It's
And-
reasonable.
And just for the record, I guess, the circumstances of the applicant, I guess, is what caused them to want to put the pool in and to need the deck. But as far as the criteria that our board is empowered to factor in, because we're not allowed to factor in any personal circumstances, but the lot is very undersized for the zoning district. It's over 3,000 square feet, smaller in square footage than it should be, and it's 40 feet more narrow than it should be. So the reason for them wanting to put the pool in aside, the reason that they need the variance is because the lot is so undersized and, in my opinion, meets the criteria because of the size of the lot.
I also think if the percent lot coverage was on the same size lot, it would be under 30%.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
John Moreland,
Yes.
Owen Curley,
Yes.
Jeff Trular,
Yes.
Todd Smith,
Yes.
Alexi Gonzalez.
Yes, your request has been approved. Can we call the next case, please?
Board calls POA 23-100077, property address 836 North 6th Avenue. Motion to consider section 34-337E1C1 for a front yard setback of 9 feet in lieu of 20 feet minimum, and 34-337E1C2 for a corner yard setback of 1 foot in lieu of 12.5 feet minimum, to allow for construction of a new carport and for a corner side yard of 10 feet in lieu of 12.5 feet minimum, to address existing nonconformities and to allow for a front porch addition to an existing single-family dwelling.
Thank you. As a reminder, each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak once we open the public hearing. Does any board member have ex parte communication on this item?
I've had none.
I've had none.
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 I've had none. Would the applicant or agent please come forward to be sworn in and give your testimony?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and address each.
Nancy Delane, Overton Lawn, 836 6th Avenue North, Chesapeake.
Robert Gray, 5211 Pine Rocklands Avenue, Lithia, Florida.
Thank you. Can you tell us the nature of the hardship at your property?
I'm the architect who drew the plans for the project, and our goal was to use the majority of what's existing and to adapt as we needed to meet the needs that are, of the house. It's not, since 1955, it's deficient in certain ways. So the house that was built in 1955, parts of it go outside the building restriction line, particularly on the corner side, westerly edge. And so we designed it, or I designed it and it goes in like 2 feet beyond what's allowable today. So that's the nature of our hardship too. So we've expanded the envelope to meet the minimum square footage for the conditioned space. And we're struggling to locate a car on the property and to do a carport. We're flexible but we do have a preference of putting it on the front side of the house. There's existing benefits to doing it. There's a culvert. We want to do a one-car carport. We'll be able to use the existing features of the property. And we think it'll look appropriate. But to do it, we're going to have to come within 9 feet of the front building restriction, or else we'd have to place it somewhere else. And that's generated by the minimum size of the car that's allowable. So generally speaking, we're trying to use the existing features and work within the requirements as much as we can. So on the front porch thing, we wanted the porch to match the side of the house. So I'm basically 1.5 feet into the building restriction line on the new aspect. So we're hopeful that you'll be allow for that. And my office filed the application and did not put the correct last name for Delane, so we'll mention that to the, it's Overton Lawn, and I put Lawn on the application, so that's my error. We can correct that later.
Thank you.
I'm just here in support, hoping that, whatever, y'all have the technical language, y'all can do that, but,
And you're the homeowner?
yes, I'm home.
When did you purchase the home?
1992 or 3?
And have you expanded it at all
I
since
did
that
not,
time?
the carport and the breezeway was already filled in when I bought it.
Okay.
I-
So as it is, before any of this work would get done, it's as it was when you purchased the home?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, as far as any of that goes, yes.
So the carport,
I should
since
mention
that
that-
house was there originally?
That's what I was correct. The original carport was enclosed and used as a kitchen before Delane purchased it.
So where do you park now?
I'm just used to pulling right in there and in the front of the house. And it's, like he said, it's the 9-foot discrepancy of that, and that would be my first choice of where to put it.
Okay.
She just parks on the driveway. It just isn't covered.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry.
And how many spaces would be available after this carport? Like, how many cars would the carport accommodate to?
A single car.
Yeah,
One car? Okay.
so there's still parking behind it, and then I have 2 spaces on the side that are utilized a lot.
So you keep it at 9th Street parking, off-street parking
Yes.
as well?
Yes.
Our plan is to have the carport and then to do the required car place using driveway strips to the westerly side, and that's the basics.
And, sorry, maybe I should ask this
I
different
probably
way.
didn't
Will
say-
there be a reduction in the amount of parking you currently have on the property?
No.
I think it's currently spaced, I think there's one driveway spot that's used for one car, and there's an additional area, but I'm not even sure if it's a drive or paved.
It's now it's bark, mulch, sorry. I intend to put down nice gravel and all that, because every time the mulch, when we get rain, slide down the street. But make it official with the, little honeycomb things and rock on there, so it's real surface. But not any more concrete at all. Like, if anything, don't want any more concrete, and that's why with the wheel strips versus the big slab in the front. I don't want any more concrete than I have to either.
I should mention one thing I didn't say before. We have, the carport is our request for the front, but since we weren't sure if you guys would be, we didn't know the staff might support or if you guys would be supportive, so we, out of an air of flexibility, we offered an alternate location. So that's the intent there, is that we need to put it somewhere, and our hope is to the front.
And in the application, it says that this is all to address existing nonconformities and allow for a front porch addition.
The front porch addition, when you look at the westerly side, I'm about 1 foot or 1.5 feet into the building restriction, and it's not an existing feature. I'm only asking for that for a cohesive roof plan and a more attractive front elevation.
And can I ask a question? If we could flip to the location map on this diagram, the actually pictured one, and I think, is that the building restriction line in green? That's hard to read. But there's a really faint green, is that the building restriction line we're talking about exceeding after you built it on 6th Avenue North? Really hard to see, I'm sorry, I can see it on screen.
Yeah, you would have to.
I'm just basically, I'm asking the question, line of sight down the street.
I believe we're talking about 9th Street North.
You're asking for your first request is 6th Avenue North, is that correct, your preference?
Correct.
So if you were going out 6th Avenue North and you're going past the building restriction line, which I believe you might see it on the gram as a faint green line, do we see that? Do you all see that one I'm looking at?
Through the chair, those are the parcel designations set by the property appraiser. I would not trust them to be anywhere close to accurate, they're just representative.
My question is, this will project out beyond that parcel line, correct, with this carport addition on your parcel?
That is correct.
6th Avenue North.
Correct.
The question I go to that is, have you spoken to your neighbors about this projection out down the line of sight down the street?
Yes. Yes.
What it is.
And they're fine with it. It's really, it's funny because there's lawn fence and, wildlife and stuff that's extended further, and I'm not blocking anything more because than blocking a sight line to the ocean, if that's what you're asking, so. If I'm saying that right.
Just a contour of this down the street and the line of sight, okay.
Yeah.
The second thing is we're still keeping an 8-foot plate height, so we're keeping a low profile also.
Any other questions for the applicant?
And the reason why you didn't want to go to 9th was just for preference of access?
There's an existing culvert there. That's the way they used it in the previous. There's existing
Culvert's on
concrete.
6th. The culvert's on 6th. 9th is the side here.
9th Street.
Yeah.
Your option B was to go on 9th Street.
Yes, behind the house.
Correct.
So it would go in behind the house, yes. And
Did you ask about 6th or 9th? I didn't.
I was asking on 9th because your preference.
Oh, I'm wrong on that. She's right.
So 9th was option 2,
Yes.
6th is option 1, correct? You prefer.
Correct.
And the reason why you want to go to 9th was, for what reason, sorry?
That was our secondary option. We were doing that only in the air of having flexibility because we know we need one of the two.
Okay.
Are both the parking spaces now those strips there?
One's a concrete pad and the other's kind of a gravel area.
Okay.
Mulch, that's
One
the
on
mulch
Ninth Street
that I
is
was
a gravel area?
It's mulch. It has
Okay.
been gravel mulch, whatever, but yes, I tend to do the nice honeycomb so that it's definitely a place to park and it's visibly known.
Any other questions for the applicant at this time? Okay. Hearing none, you may be seated for now, and I will open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers cards?
No speakers cards and no correspondence.
Does anyone in the audience is there anyone in the audience who has not filled out a speaker's card who wishes to speak on this item? And if so, please fill out a card before you leave. Okay, hearing none, I will now close the public hearing and bring the item back to the board for discussion. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve BOA 23-100077 based on the testimony and evidence provided. The request is met on the standards for variances outlined in section 34-286 of the Land Development Code.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I just had one question for Christian, or, I'm sorry, I don't recall your name. What was it?
Next.
Next, okay, I apologize. Would it also bring it more into conformity, having the carport, because right now they don't have any set parking areas? I was wondering that because it said it was correcting non-conformities, but it did mention the fact that now they're gonna have like a covered parking area. And I thought that was like a part of the requirement.
Yeah, what is the parking requirement in RS2? Because I know in RS1 they have to have a garage or a covered carport.
RS1 actually specifically just says garage. RS2 and RS3 allow either a carport or a
But
garage.
it should have one or the other.
Correct.
So this
So
would bring it more into compliance by
Yes,
doing this.
that's
Okay,
right.
that's what I wanted to know.
I just noted that she has a non-conforming lot, and they're not asking for any additional lot coverage, which I thought was,
I agree with that. I struggle with best usage of the space. I mean, I still think neighbors are always nice, I believe, until they're not nice. But again, looking at that line of sight, I mean, if you look at the option B where you have 9th Street, you can push that back, and it would be without any obstruction down line of sight. Sometimes we respect that. So that's just my opinion on my thought of that. If there's an option there, and there any other hardship answers why if that was not an option two. Because you could actually push it back. Because to me, that looks like it's available to push a carport there. Just my feedback.
I'm assuming, well, I probably should assume, so I'll keep that to myself.
Through the chair, if I could just interject quickly. When we drafted the notice for this, we tried to capture both options in the request because they're proposing both as alternatives. We can't really consider alternatives. So if you pick one or the other, just make sure you note that in the motion somehow.
You're wanting to amend the motion, right?
Correct.
I do agree there's a hardship there, and I think we should find a solution with the carport.
okay, I move to amend the motion to accept option A for the carport to be on 6th Street, 6th Avenue.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call? And this is whether or not to amend the motion. So can we have a roll call on whether or not to amend the motion?
Owen Curley,
Yes.
Jeff Trular,
Yes.
Todd Smith,
Yes.
John Mullen,
Yes.
Alexi Gonzalez.
Yes. So the new motion is specifically to approve the first proposed carport, which is from 6th Avenue North. Is there any further discussion on this request?
I'm done.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Owen Curley,
Yes.
Jeff Trular,
No.
Todd Smith,
Yes.
John Mullen,
Yes.
Alexi Gonzalez.
Yes. Your request for your proposal A has been approved. Can we call the next case, please?
Board calls BOA 23-100079. Property address 422 6th Avenue South. Motion to consider 34-337E1C1 for a front yard setback of 14.6 feet in lieu of 20 feet minimum. 34-337E1C3 for a rear yard setback of 17 feet in lieu of 30 feet minimum to allow for a covered front patio to an existing single-family dwelling.
Thank you. As a reminder, each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak when we open the public hearing. Does any board member have any ex parte communication on this item?
I've had none.
I've had none.
I've had none.
I've had none.
None.
I've had none.
And I've had none. Would the applicant or agent please come forward to be sworn in and give your testimony?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, sir.
Please state your name and address.
James T. Smithson, 422 6th Avenue South, Jacksonville Beach, Florida.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Hi, can you tell us the nature of the hardship at your property?
Yes, what I'm trying to do is, because that property is non-conforming and the lot size is really small, if you look at all of those properties on 6th Avenue South, you'll see each one of those is lined up and has a flat gable A-frame end because of the way that the setbacks are placed. What I'm proposing to do is modify that front facade slightly, just to go ahead and give it a more aesthetic feel. Not only am I a contractor, but I live at the house too. And then in the rear, what I'm trying to do is they've got an old aluminum screen and covered patio section. What I'm trying to do is create a more durable built structure to that property, which is then a covered patio over the top of that, which then matches the rest of the roofing facade and the rest of the building, or the rest of the exterior function of the house.
So you will be, you're not just replacing the existing patio, you are somewhat expanding the footprint? Am I seeing that correctly?
Yes, somewhat expanding the footprint, yes. I've got a three-dimensional image which would explain it a little bit more if you'd like to see that.
Do you have something printed?
Yes, I do.
We can take it, but you would have to submit it to the clerk as part of the record, which means we would keep it. So as long as you're okay with us keeping
Sure.
it, you can submit it through the clerk and we can all take a look.
Okay. Yeah, I think a three-dimensional image gives you a little bit more of a true picture of what I'm trying to do versus the two-dimensional images that are originally provided. So it'll give you a flavor for what I'm trying to do.
Well, I just had a question. When I look at the existing plans, this portion concrete, and I look at your proposed, that makes sense out of it. The question I had on it, on the proposed covered patio, you say existing concrete. Does that exist already?
Yes, it already exists.
So it just doesn't show in that one plan?
Yeah, it's two cores that they've got. They've got a large core, and then they put a secondary, smaller, which
It
is
just
right
seems
next
strange.
to
Look
it.
at
It
the
is
one behind the
strange.
smaller one. That's why it's strange to me.
Yes.
So it's all been taken into consideration with the lot coverage.
Yeah, based off of the way that it's built, there's no increase in the lot coverage because even the way that I put the exterior or the front covered patio, it's put over the actual driveway portion. That driveway, I guess originally back in 1986, it looks like somebody had added another 4 or 5 feet to it. It meets the site survey that you guys have, but what I'm trying to do is just add the 5.5 feet over the top of that existing, so I don't modify any of the impervious nature of what you got out there.
What is in that area that says proposed covered patio on the back?
It's, there's concrete out there
Okay.
right now. It's a covered patio it's like an aluminum covered screen porch. It's got concrete and it's got another outcropping of concrete that's already there.
How come it says proposed if it's already there?
That's the proposed structure. The concrete is already existing. It's
Oh,
just,
okay, so it's
yeah,
just concrete now?
yeah, it's concrete now.
Okay.
But I'm proposing to cover with a complete structure mounted to the building with 6x6 construction.
And I know that the home was constructed prior to the adoption of the current code. How many of these nonconformities are existing? In other words, so for example, you're requesting a front yard setback of 14.6 feet in lieu of 20 feet minimum. What's the current front yard setback? Is it already under 20 feet?
No, it's actually 20, but then you have an easement zone, so the face of the house actually sits at 30 back. So you've got the 10 easement, then another 20, and I'm encroaching in the 20 setback, which doesn't even include the 10 at the front on the easement zone. So the house is back a ways.
Okay. And then the rear setback, because there's something already there, are you already encroaching in the?
Yes, it's already encroaching, yes. And what I'm doing is I'm just putting in a permanent structure versus the structure that they've got.
Okay.
Your rendering, you're showing the proposed covered patio to be cantilevered out past the concrete, either side. It's showing your roof line going beyond the concrete in your rendering here.
The roof line is, no, the roof line is like, it's like 10 feet, I think.
I think it's open, it's like.
It's open, but it's saying it's going past the concrete, it's affecting, you know, left and right. That's the impervious area, it's covered.
But I don't think it is covered on the top, is it?
It's not covered and there's no new concrete going in there.
I didn't say concrete, you've got roof line though, sticking out of the
and no. I mean, it's gonna,
Yes or no?
that's more the eave edge versus the 6x6 is actually right at the corner where the concrete is. And that's just the eave that carries over 12 inches past what the overall beam would be. I mean, there's,
It just looks.
yeah, that's deceiving based off the drawing. It's not going
4
further
or
than
5
that.
feet in this picture.
Excuse me?
It looks like it's 4 or 5 feet in the picture.
No, the total coverage of the total width of the covered patio is 30 feet, and the house is 35, so it's set back 2.5 on either side of the inside.
I'm just referencing to try and get an accurate portrayal of the exterior for, if you ever come back in here again for something else, it needs to be accurate.
Right.
So given the renderings and your proposed plans, because there's no request for greater lot coverage. And so despite how it might appear in the renderings that you've given to us, you're not planning on increasing the lot coverage above your,
No.
okay. Any other questions for the applicant at this time?
Have you talked to the neighbors?
Yes.
And what is their reaction?
Everybody's hopeful that they can modify the fronts of their buildings, because I mean, every single one of them, it all looks the same. It's kind of a cookie cutter right down the street right there. And it's not to do something that is, outlandish, but it's to do something that makes it more aesthetically pleasing. So if everyone else does, it'll look nice right there on that street.
Any other questions? Hearing none, you can be seated for now, and I will open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers cards?
No speakers cards and no correspondence.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who's not filled out a speaker's card who wishes to speak on this item? Hearing none, I will now close the public hearing and bring the item back to the board for discussion. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve BOA 23-100079. Based on the testimony and evidence provided, the request has met all the standards for a variance as outlined in section 34-286 of the Land Development Code.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Question for the city planner, just looking at this, it looks like there's a significant amount of lot coverage. Was it confirmed that that's within the existing bounds, or has there been a previous variance of any kind to cover what's existing?
Yeah, I'm curious about that too, because the lot is undersized in square footage, I believe. So I was a little surprised that by adding this much space in the front and the rear, that they weren't going over the lot coverage.
Do we have a survey that shows lot coverage on it? Is that
Said it was 5,000,
you
and
impervious
it
area?
should be 7,500. The minimum in that area is 7,500, which is 5,000.
Yeah, I think he means what's the current lot coverage of the property, or percentage.
There's a lot of concrete.
Looking at this as if we're considering it that no additional lot coverage is going in, I just want to make sure that there's not an existing nonconformity of lot coverage that should have been addressed here that wasn't. I don't know if there's already a variance on file for that, or if I'm just.
No, there's no variance on file.
Have we calculated at all that this fits the 35% criteria?
No, we haven't.
In the proposed site plan, it says lot area, it only has the square footage, it doesn't have the percent. Hold on. It looks like the dwelling area is 1,581, and the lot area, this says the lot area is 4,514, but we'll do 5,000 since that's what's in the staff report. He's only at 31%, or almost 32%, if that's correct.
That would just be the structure of the house, right? Wouldn't incorporate.
No, that's the proposed. So that's all, dwelling area. Yeah, you're right. So that's another 935.
And for clarity, this question is really rooted in trying to avoid having a separate variance later.
Yeah.
You know, want to make sure we're addressing all the issues that might need to be addressed here.
Okay, I'm gonna keep doing my amateur math here, but is there any way, I mean, if his request doesn't include lot coverage, then I have to imagine that, based on the staff review, that his proposal wouldn't put him over the lot coverage maximum, right?
To the chair, I mean, if he didn't provide anything requesting the lot coverage be more than 35%, then, you know, he's limited to that when he goes to build. So if he is over 35% based on the design that's proposed, then his options are gonna be to reduce the square footage or come back for another variance. Now, if he's currently over lot coverage, and that was a condition at the time of purchase, we give people deference for that. So as long as he was maintaining, let's say he was at 40%, and when he was done, it was still 40%, we wouldn't require him to get a variance for that. But
Even if that 40% was never approved through a variance previously?
correct, there's a lot of nonconformities that we necessarily can't track when they were done. I mean, even some things with, you know, the more sophisticated aerials we have, they don't necessarily go back far enough to catch everything. So if we can't definitively prove it, we generally just say it's an existing nonconformity. So assuming that's the case, if they are over lot coverage currently, they would get that amount that they're currently over, and they could reconfigure it if need be. But if they're at 35% and they're not requesting more, then they would have to be at 35% once they complete the project with, and that's why we require an as-built survey for these things when they're completed to verify that they're within those limits. So if there's a concern, particularly on the applicant side, that, you know, they haven't looked at this issue, they may wish to potentially defer and give us that information, and we can verify it, or move forward under the auspice that they can shrink it if they need to.
Well, I'm leaning toward maybe having the applicant come back up and address that and potentially deferring, because my, again, very amateur math, is leading me to believe that he would be at about 50% lot coverage. And I'm hesitant to approve his request for the front and rear setbacks without having considered that he would be way over the lot coverage maximum, because then, you know, we've seen enough times people coming back in several months down the line when they do their final, you know, the city does the final walkthrough, and then they have to come in and, you know, ask for
Correct.
forgiveness rather than permission. So, does anyone on the board have an issue with bringing the applicant back up to address the lot coverage of the proposal?
I do not.
Would you mind coming back up? Sure. So the reason that this is coming up is because in your request, you reference the front and rear setbacks of your home, but it doesn't reference needing any variance for lot coverage. And the lot coverage is, I believe, in RS2, it's 35%, right? And it's looking like what you're proposing would put your total lot coverage at about 50%. Have you done any lot coverage calculations?
No, I have not. I've just looked at, I mean, in referencing what the senior planner had alluded to, based off of the current flat work that is there, knowing it was already there, because I just purchased the property about 5.5 months ago or so, knowing that it was going to fall into that situation of the anomaly where that flat work's there, that percentage of lot coverage has already been taken up previously, it was going to fall into my construction because it's already covered. That was why I didn't consider it, because I knew I was going to get it eventually.
Yeah, but I'm just looking at your, unless I'm reading this wrong. So can we go to his proposed, okay, we're right there. So I see the main structure of the home, that's the dark gray. Immediately to the south of that, the slashed line rectangle that says proposed covered patio.
Yes.
That is, how much of that is there already? No, yeah, lower, right there. The covered patio,
The proposed covered patio, there's an existing structure that's there that covers all of the concrete that is already there.
at that same footprint,
Yes.
and then the existing concrete behind it is just,
No, that's the existing structure, that screen structure actually covers all the way out to the end of that concrete right now. I've cut it back. That structure is like 17 or 18 feet. I'm cutting back to 10-foot cover.
okay.
That's the difference. So I knew I was gonna be left with concrete there, but not changing any of the impervious nature of what I was doing.
Okay,
In order to be able to pass, it's a small lot, I get it, the percentages are very high, but there's no way I'd get approved with adding more concrete to it.
It's very likely that whoever had that done didn't permit that.
Could be, I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Would have had to gotten a variance for all that coverage.
Through the chair, can,
Could,
mind if I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Is this the survey you got when you purchased the house?
this one, yes, right here.
Okay, so this is showing,
Yeah, that's a little bit off though.
okay, again, we're going by what was submitted. So the concern of the board is that the covered patio you're showing is larger than what's depicted here.
Correct.
And so, and the driveway that's shown on the site plan is larger than what's depicted here. So what you're saying is you feel that this survey is inaccurate.
I believe that, yes, it's absolutely inaccurate, the way that the concrete is set.
Okay, because the concern is that whatever this lot coverage is, per our conversation, is what you would get. So
That's right.
we'll need to verify what that is, and then that'll go towards your design. And if this isn't
Sure.
accurate, you may want to look at getting a new survey that is.
Right, and I mean, it's easy enough then too, I mean, the pervious nature of the things out of what I like to do, even with turf or grass, I mean, I'm happy to do those types of things, there's no issues. I mean, it's a small lot, you want to make sure that things percolate, especially when I'm living there, I don't want to live in the swamp.
and so you don't have any reservations, us moving forward considering your request as is, without any lot coverage accounted for?
No, I think I'm good, because just based on what current conditions are with the concrete that's there, I should be fine.
Okay. Any questions on this line of this topic for the applicant? Okay, then you can be seated.
Thank you.
Thank you. So there's still a motion on the table to approve the request. Is there any discussion?
So, question for the staff. So we have we may have a lot coverage issue here. If it's pre-existing, how does that handle by the city? When he goes to build it, or is he gonna have to come back and do
No, so at the time of purchase, again, if we can't verify when something was expanded or if it was expanded, but there are no variances on this property, but it is likely that historically at some point these additions to the lot coverage were added. If we can't definitively put our finger on who did it or when it happened, even if we wanted to like take it to the magistrate and make them require them to get a variance, the odds are they're not going to do it because we don't have any definitive evidence. So we generally give people the credit for what is there historically and allow them to reconfigure it if need be. So if they are at, as I said, like 40%, they would be entitled to that 40% going forward as long as they don't exceed it. So he's comfortable that he will remain with whatever he currently has. So when he's done, he won't have increased the lot coverage and therefore wouldn't need the variance.
And I guess a question for the chair too. So isn't part of our board here to clean up nonconformities? Seems like a hanging nonconformity. Is that
I mean,
part of the question?
in essence, the board can do that, but without the relevant information and not having it advertised at this point, then there's nothing that would compel them to get the variance unless they did a major renovation on the inside of the structure.
Okay, thank you.
But we have had requests include, in the past, we've had requests for a variance from lot coverage requirements to address existing nonconformities, right?
Yes, and we typically try and catch those and include them so that there isn't an issue in the future. However, in this particular case, they don't think it's necessary, so we didn't pursue it.
So I would also like to remind the board that we don't have to, you know, the submitted plans help and the renderings help, but I don't think that, I mean, we don't require a completed proposal in order to approve what's being requested. So if what he's requesting is front and rear setback because of the hardship at his property, then our duty is to consider, based on our criteria, if the property, you know, meets that criteria to approve such requests. So whether or not his proposed project would affect his lot coverage, you know, I would argue it's maybe not for us to say. Obviously, it might become our problem down the line if he goes over the lot coverage and has to come in and rectify nonconformities, but if he's not concerned about the lot coverage, then I don't think that it's necessarily up for the board to decide that for him. But that's just my thought. Any other discussion?
Well, anybody that comes into the board of variance is gonna tell you that they're okay with their lot coverage.
Right, but he's assuming the responsibility of getting that final walkthrough from the city when, you know, building officials are going to verify whether or not he's gone over his lot coverage. And if he's saying that he doesn't think his request is gonna be an issue, then he's accepting that responsibility, and it's, you know, the onus is on him to make sure that he doesn't exceed his
I just don't
lot
recall
coverage.
ever seeing somebody come in that didn't have lot coverage calculations to look at. I mean, I have a
Yeah.
problem with that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah,
I wonder if it would be acceptable,
Do we defer into the
staff,
litigation?
can we amend the motion so that, lot coverage would remain, the requirement would remain at 35% as is currently felt
I think
exists?
the issue is that we don't know if it's at 35%.
We're talking about the transfer of sales, what's existing, and that's what they looked at, not him.
But if he begins to construct and it is more than 35%, the city will have to stop construction.
Is that correct, Christian?
If he exceeds the lot coverage he currently has, which may or may not be 35%, we would require that information up front at the building permit stage. So if he is proposing something that's over what he currently has, then it wouldn't pass land development review, and his options would be to redesign it or come in for another variance. So that information will be reviewed and required, and again, if he has 37% lot coverage, he's entitled to keep that. He can reconfigure it by moving it to the porch or reducing the driveway or something along those lines, but only if he's going to exceed what he had at the time of purchase would he need the variance. So it may be more than 35, but it won't exceed what there is currently.
So if the request were to be approved as the motion was made, as he requested it, before he is allowed to begin work, the city would have to verify that his proposal will not exceed the lot coverage he currently has.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think Tom's got a good point, and that is, that could set a precedent where everybody could come in and say, well, I don't know what my lot coverage is, and we approve something, and then they automatically inherit an increased lot coverage because it's not going to be anything additional to what illegally exists now.
But I mean, what Christian is saying is that that's already policy, that as long as he's not exceeding what exists now as he purchased it, then he wouldn't have to come in for review anyway. And he's saying that that if we were to approve this request, that before work could begin, the city would have to verify that his proposed construction would not exceed the lot coverage, or else he wouldn't.
Would not exceed the coverage as it exists, but it could exceed 35%. It it could be 50%.
Why don't they just calcs and come in and then we can address the non-compliant right then and there, everything. If we defer it.
I agree with you.
Okay. Would somebody like to propose an amended motion?
I move to amend the motion to defer BOA 23-100079 to obtain current lot coverage calculations.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to amend the motion on the table to defer decision on this item until such time as we can see current calculated lot coverage. Is there any discussion on that motion? Sorry, Christian, did you have something?
I was just gonna say typically these are deferred to a time certain. So I would suggest, it'll probably take the applicant 30 days or more potentially to get a survey updated. So possibly looking towards like the end of October. I think the 17th is the second meeting of October.
So if we defer it and his lot coverage is over the 35% and he needs to ask for variance for the additional lot coverage to clean it up, would that give him enough time? Do we have to re-advertise?
Not necessarily, but we would know at that point, and if we needed to come back and ask for a deferment again, or deferral again, we would at the staff level to say that we've got to re-advertise it. You can defer it longer, I mean, it's up to you guys.
If we defer it until, as you suggested, October 17th, and he's not able to provide the calculations by then, can we, at that meeting, during old business, discuss deferring it until the meeting after that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So is that, has the amendment been seconded?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have to, so we have to amend the amendment, right?
No.
So we're gonna amend it to October 17th, right? We're gonna postpone, defer to October 17th. Okay, I move to amend the amendment so that BOA 23-100079 is deferred until the October 17th, 2023 Board Adjustments meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on voting to amend the motion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Jeff Trular,
Yes.
Todd Smith,
Yes.
John Moreland,
Yes.
Owen Curley,
No.
Alexi Gonzalez.
No. So the vote passed, so the motion that is now on the table is to defer decision on this item until the October 17th board meeting, at which point we can consider it with updated lot coverage calculations. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Jeff Trular,
Yes.
Todd Smith,
Yeah.
John Moreland,
Yes.
Owen Curley,
No.
Alexi Gonzalez.
No. Decision on your item has been deferred until the October 17th meeting, and I would encourage you to reach out to staff if you have any questions about getting the lot coverage calculations available by then. So thank you, everybody, for your patience as we navigated that tricky issue. Can we please move on to the next case of new business?
Board calls BOA 23-100080, property address 0 2nd Street South and 215 16th Avenue South. Motion to consider 34-342E3A for a front yard setbacks of 6.9 feet, in lieu of 10 feet minimum along 2nd Street South, and for a front yard setback of 3.3 feet, in lieu of 10 feet minimum along 16th Avenue South, and 34-377 for 26 off-street on-site parking spaces in lieu of 58 spaces required to allow for new office building.
Thank you. As a reminder, each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak when we open the public hearing. Does any board member have ex parte communication on this item?
I've had none.
I've had none.
I've had none.
None.
I've had none.
And I've had none. Would the applicant or agent please come forward to be sworn in and give your testimony?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
Stephen Waycaster, 229 San Juan Drive, Conneaut, Florida, 32082.
Thank you. Can you tell us the nature of the hardship at your property?
Sure, this is in a project that we've spoken about a couple times previously. We have a small lot on the corner of 2nd Street, 16th Avenue South. We were building a variance for the parking and for the setback described here. Just to clarify on the setback, that's for cantilever balconies that are 18.5 feet above the ground. It's not for the building itself. The building itself is within the setbacks. In fact, it's inside of the setbacks on the corner of the property and the west side of the property. So we're looking to extend those variances. We acquired the adjacent property, which today is a laundromat building. That's kind of a dilapidated building that has a paved parking lot. We've acquired that, and we're looking to basically wrap the building around that corner and just extend the existing variance. We're picking up more parking. We're going from 11 spaces, I believe it was, to 26, which is more than adequate to house with our use case, and just extend the balconies to that corner. So that's the request.
So what's driving up the increased parking request if you're only adding balcony? I understand that question.
We're roughly doubling the size of the building.
So you're adding up?
So we're not going up. The original space was just right there, number one.
Okay.
So we added 2. And so rather than use the bottom floor, we maintained the prior design, which is to use floors 2 and 3 for office. And this is owner-occupied space, so it's not for lease to a third party. And we just extended the parking around. So we didn't add additional space on the bottom floor. We're just using that for parking. If that answers the question.
So with the request of, you're requesting how many in lieu of 58?
26.
How do you accommodate the other cars that the code is requiring? I'm trying to understand that question. How are you going to accommodate the additional parking?
We won't require that parking.
The building requires it, not you personally, the building requires it. The code's written on the building, not on business.
Okay. So the same case that we presented last time, which is that's going to be an owner-occupied building.
But you're magnifying the numbers, what I'm trying to get to. I mean, before you were 16, now you're 20s. It's just a lot of additional parking we're talking about, the building requires.
Right. For our use case, we don't use it, but to your point, there is additional parking, roughly 50 spaces in that area, public parking.
In front of the tennis.
In front of the tennis and down the street.
Which is used during the.
And just a couple of reminders about how our business works. We do not have retail traffic, so we have no one, as opposed to the dry cleaner and that's there currently. We have no office visitors. We're an investment firm, so we don't have people coming in and out of our office, so there will be no retail traffic on that site. In addition, we're shut down. We go remote during the summers, so I think one of the primary uses of those spaces is during the summer. We wouldn't be there during the summer. And it's normal office hours during the week.
How many staff members do you have that work in the businesses that exist?
We're approximately high 20s, 30. But we travel quite a bit, so it's very unusual that we would all be there on the same day.
So how many people on an average day might be there?
20, 25.
So this is a least evasive request for parking, this application for office space? I'm sorry, Christian, is this a least evasive we look at some businesses' different parking requirements?
So for office, it's based on the square footage of the building, and that's one space per 300.
So it's based on just office space? Okay.
I don't know if this would help the conversation at all, but just looking at the numbers really quickly. Their previously approved variance was for 11 spaces in lieu of 28 that were required when the building was roughly half the size. And that was basically providing 40% of the required parking. Currently, they're asking for 26 spaces in lieu of 58, which is about 44% of the parking. So it's roughly the same request. It's just been amplified by the size of the building.
And the requirement that the city has set forth is only related to the square footage of the building. It's not tied to the use of their building, like some.
Well, it's tied to the use as office, which is what they're proposing is the use of the property. But yeah, I mean, if they were to put a restaurant in there, obviously that would substantially change the parking demand. So this is just based on one space for 300 for office space.
Right. But, for example, as the applicant stated, they don't have any, the only people going in there are their employees. So the parking calculation isn't different for them not having customers coming in as it would be for a building that did have customers coming in.
No, I mean, the calculation would be the same for office regardless.
Yeah.
One other question I had, so the building is on top of parking there, correct, or no?
Yes, so that the entire bottom floor, there you go. The entire bottom floor is parking.
Okay.
And with the requests that have previously been approved, what is the current state of completion?
We didn't begin to construct because we were able to acquire the lot adjacent,
Okay.
so we didn't begin construction. So we paused construction. Our engineer has permits prepared to submit on the revised structure, but we haven't done that.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, you can be seated for now, and I will open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers cards?
No speakers cards and no correspondence.
Is there anyone in the audience who has not filled out a speaker's card who wishes to speak on this item? And if so, please fill out a card before you leave. Hearing none, I will now close the public hearing and bring the item back to the board for discussion. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve BOA 23-100080. Based on the testimony and evidence provided, the request has met all standards for variance as outlined in section 34-286 of the Land Development Code.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I understand percentages, but it's just more cars looking for spots, that's all I'm concerned. And I know we apply to the building, not to the owner applicant, owner status, but I guess an office space is an office space.
But if the use of the building changed to a new owner, then they would be held to a different standard potentially.
Right, if they had a different use.
Yeah, it's not retail, not retail application building, definitely is an office space building. I mean, I can't see it flexing to something else, that would create a problem.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Todd Smith,
Yes.
John Moreland,
Yes.
Owen Curley,
Yes.
Jeff Trular,
Yes.
Alexi Gonzalez.
Yes, your request has been approved. Can we call the next case, please?
Board calls BOA 23-100081, property address 1908 Ocean Drive. Motion to consider section 34-338E1E for lot coverage of 54.6% in lieu of 35% maximum, 34-340E1C1 for a front yard setback of 14.6 feet in lieu of 20 feet minimum to allow for second and third floor balcony additions to an existing single-family dwelling.
Thank you. As a reminder, each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak when we open the public hearing. Does any board member have ex parte communication on this item?
I've had 2 conversations with neighbors who live on Ocean Drive. Both of them were requesting information more so than trying to influence approval or disapproval.
Okay,
One was Dan Amala, and the other was David Second.
Anyone else?
I've had none.
I've had none.
But none.
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 And I've had none. Would the applicant or agent please be sworn in to give your testimony?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
Alexis Gamble, 1302 18th Avenue North, Jacksonville Beach, Florida, 32250.
Sir, will you be speaking? Okay. Then can you please describe the nature of the hardship at your property?
Yes, so we originally applied for a variance back in April, I believe, which was granted very gratefully. So the backstory on that is the property was under contract to be purchased by the current owners, and a condition or a contingency of that purchase was that the variance was granted. So we didn't have finished plans or anything at that point. We just had kind of a basic footprint structure, which is what we applied for that variance on, that was granted. So since then, we've finalized plans, which is the site plan that you guys have now. And it did say in the application an existing structure. There is no existing structure on that property. The existing structure was demolished, so it's a vacant lot now, which is non-conforming. It is only 40 feet wide in lieu of 60 feet at 2,800 square feet in lieu of 6,000 square feet. So with the current plans, which is what we hope to get permitted and move forward with construction, they did add a cantilevered balcony on the second and third story only. It's 3 feet 6 inches off the granted 18-foot variance setback that we have. So it will not impede street visibility because it is only the second and third floor, and it will not hinder any parking, obviously, because it's raised and all of the driveway space will remain. So won't hinder visibility or parking.
So we approved you for 50.6% and you requested from us was 54. How did you grow from the approval to where you are now?
It was 51%, I believe, was the granted variance.
51, but now you're 54, your request is for.
Correct, because of the cantilevered the balcony.
Does that affect lot coverage?
Yes.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, our code doesn't make any distinction between what's on the ground and what's above it, so any roof line, cantilevered space, anything like that currently counts toward lot coverage.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, so we're actually requesting, sorry if I can't speak or.
No, you're good.
Yeah, so it, actually, the front setback, because of the cantilever would go from the 18 feet that we currently have to 14.6. But again, it's on the second story, it's not anything that's on the ground level.
And that's the only difference from what we discussed in April.
So, yeah, I mean, this is what we had in April, which again, is just a very blank footprint, without any real plans, and now we have a full set of plans, which is more detailed, which is what you guys have up there.
Okay.
But the lot coverage on the first floor level is 51%.
None of the setbacks, as far as the actual building footprint, have changed. What was approved is 10 feet on the back and 18 on the front, with 5 on each side. That's what this current plan calls for. The only deviation is the cantilever. So, yes. Christian, what is a 14.6 front yard setback in lieu of 20?
That's for the balconies, balcony encroachments.
So that's a okay, so because you were saying it was 18 So before, the now variance it's going to be that- 4 feet shorter because of the second story. Okay, yes, just making sure. Well, 3 feet 6 inches shorter.
And I live in that neighborhood, I like to hope that you don't paint it yellow.
It's going to be white.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Have you spoke to your neighbors?
I have not. I think, you have, we did have some opposition with the original variance. We've encountered and corresponded with all those people through the demolition process, and everybody seems to be amenable to everything at this point. So not specifically about this, no, but we haven't had any, real opposition or anything while we've been out there.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, you could be seated for now, and I will open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers cards on this item?
Yes, I believe they spoke. Alexis?
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, and Frank?
Yeah.
Does not wish to speak? We have one from Greg Jacobs, 1330 Pinewood Road. He does not wish to speak, but he supports the agenda item. T2. We also have in front of us an email from Matthew Chang, dated Saturday, September 2nd, 2023. Hello, Jacksonville Beach Planning Department. Our family opposes this variance to 55% lot. I think it's lot, but I think it's supposed to be lot coverage ratio. Previously, the planning department had already granted a variance on the site, and henceforth the existing dwelling was demolished. Now the lot sits empty with no dwelling and no erosion control. The section cited in the notification below indicates that a single-family dwelling is existing. That is not the case. This is a vacant lot. Street-facing setbacks set the quality of life of the neighbors. This is a highly trafficked road for pedestrians, bicyclers, dog walkers, and parents walking children. Building structures that encroach on the road encroach on the aesthetic and public space. We would like to see the property owner respect the code, require setbacks at a minimum reverting to the prior variance granted for lot coverage and setbacks. The proposer of this variance has not solicited any feedback or garnered any support from neighbors. We are just a few houses down and have never been consulted on supporting or constructive criticism about the proposed building plan. Our perception is that this is an out-of-town housing speculator that is attempting to take advantage of lenient variance policies for the city of Jacksonville Beach that respect the neighbors or communities. Thank you for your consideration. The Chang family.
Any other?
That's it.
All right. Would the applicant care to address any of the statements made during the public comment portion?
So, yes, a couple of things. First of all, this is a older couple. They're both doctors who are relocating here as a primary residence from California. It is not an out-of-town speculator. It will be a primary residence. As far as conforming to the neighborhood, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 variances have been granted for front setbacks. 5 feet in lieu of 20, 9 feet in lieu of 20, 11 and a half in lieu of 20, 13 feet in lieu of 20, and 14 feet in lieu of 20. So we're obviously higher than all of those, and it's not going to hinder any visibility since it's going to be a second story. So I don't, anything else? Any other questions? Any other questions?
I just have one question. The plans that you're now actually going to build are the ones that have been submitted, correct?
Yes, yes, those, yeah. And so again, we just didn't have those due to the nature of everything. They didn't want to spend a ton of money on developing plans for a lot that they didn't know if it was going to be feasible for them to build on prior to purchase anyway. So that was what the first variance was about, just to get, to see if the lot would be buildable for something that they wanted in general.
Thank you.
You were referencing a lot of people that had variances for setback. That's true, but we don't know what their percentage of lot coverage was either.
I don't have that information with me, but so the neighbor is over 85% lot coverage.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? All right, you can be seated. And I will now close the public hearing and bring the item back to the board for discussion. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve BOA 23-100081, provided that it's limited to the submitted plans. And it's based on the testimony and evidence provided. The request has met all the standards for variances outlined in section 34-286 of the Land Development Code.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I think that's a good motion then so there's no, what's that term they use when it's above the percentages, when it's completed? Flex, that flex the number they do. I think that's good.
the addition of the cantilever decks, which is a nice addition. Unfortunately, it does add lot coverage, but not really. So.
And I do remember this application back when they came before us previously, and I think at that time they did submit a breakdown of the lot coverage and setbacks of the neighboring homes. You can also see in the aerial view photo, these lots were platted in 1939 or something like that, so they are significantly undersized compared to the code. This lot is under 2,800 square feet. So all things considered, and when you look at the character of the rest of the neighborhood, I know the percentage sounds high, but given the lot and what's in that neighborhood already, I think it's a minimal and reasonable use of the property.
And I think that before they took the structure down, there was about 90% lot coverage.
Yes, I remember that from the last one as well. Any other discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
John Lund,
Yes.
Owen Curley,
Yes.
Jeff Truler,
Yes.
Todd Smith,
Yeah.
Alexi Gonzalez.
Yes, your request has been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can we call the last case, please?
Board calls BOA 23-100082, property address 111 North 11th Avenue. Motion to consider sections 34-338E1E for lot coverage of 55.67% in lieu of 35% maximum to allow for new swimming pool and pool deck at an existing single-family dwelling.
Thank you. As a reminder, each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak once we open the public hearing. Does any board member have ex parte communication on this item?
I've had none.
I've had none.
Have had none?
Had none.
None.
I've had none.
And I've had none. Would the applicant or agent please come forward to be sworn in and give your testimony?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
My name is Mitchell Tidwell. My address is 2208 Hunterwood Court, Jacksonville, Florida 32225.
Thank you. Can you tell us the nature of your hardship at this property?
Nature of the hardship for this property is a substandard lot size, length, width, just about everything about this lot is substandard.
And the purpose of your variance is to,
The purpose of the variance is to allow a small amount of hardscape. As the property sits, a coping-only pool would be allowed to be installed, but we're asking for 331 square feet of pavers to allow for some area to put a summer kitchen and just have some hardscape area to sit and have a patio.
Are you aware of the variance we approved this lot after split earlier, this in 21, I believe? When we granted that lot coverage to be 40%. I was trying to say, was there any conversation about other areas of hardscape, grass or any other drainage to, I'm trying to find my notes here. Were there any other thoughts of other solutions other than pavers? Or was that just the request of the owner?
It was the request for the design aspect of that part of the landscape to be hardscape versus not. And the way that the way that the lot is sized and the setbacks that we experience when we build a project like this, we're asking for as much as we can to fit within those setbacks. If we were to look at just the overall size of the lot, if we were asking for the amount of square footage, if it were a standard size lot, because the standard size lot is, I think what was the standard size lot for the zoning district is 6,000 square feet, and ours just being a little bit over 3,000 square feet. So we're still, we would be under the lot size requirements, under 35% if it were a standard size for the total lot coverage. So we're not really trying to get to the amount that
this 6,000 square foot lot would be, just a little bit of hardscape to allow for that enjoyment. The hardscape going between the house and the pool, and then to have a small patio. That's really the only thing we're asking for, in a strip of walk to get to the pool equipment.
Okay, is this a two-family structure, or is it a single-family home?
So, to my understanding, that when it was originally proposed and constructed, it was constructed as a two-family. And somewhere in the process, before the homeowner that I'm working with purchased it, it was separated into a single-family dwelling. So, in that process before it was purchased, before the homeowner that I'm working with purchased it, that change occurred. I don't know the nature of that, but it was changed in the process by the city or by whoever was building the property at the time.
Okay, just a quick question. If you go, can we flip to the next screen down so I understand this one question? Is it just the dark around the pool you're asking for, or is it also around the other area? Is that dark all additional? Just that, or is it also the other stuff? Is that all additional add-on?
So that's pool you're on right now.
Correct.
And so the dark there, and then if you go to the back, no, that's existing.
That's what I was looking at it, so.
That is proposed. That's the pool equipment right there. And then the walkway back to the hardscape, and then that dark area that wraps around the front side of the pool.
But the upper right is already existing.
Yeah, the rest is existing.
That's what confused me, right? I thought it was all being added as well.
And is there any option, or has there been any discussion of other design options to reduce the coverage?
We've discussed it, but this is the optimal usage that the homeowner would like.
So the dwelling that's there was constructed after May 19th of 2021, is that correct?
My house was a two-family house. They broke it and split the lot, and that's why the lots got so small. Correct. The multifamily, I think, right through.
So, I mean, the variance was granted in May 19th, 2021 to allow for construction of a new two-family dwelling. Did that occur?
It did occur, but at some point during the process, it was changed. It was changed to, there's another, the lot that's, if you have the survey, you have a picture of the survey? That one. So on the lot that's towards First Street, there's a home there. That home and my customer's home were built at the same time. I don't know in the process of the building when they changed it from a two-family on that large property to a single-family on the corner lot of First Street and 11th Avenue North, and then the smaller lot that my customer resides on.
Makes sense now.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out the two-family now.
And did they put in at that time, did they put in the darkened area that was up to the right?
The existing.
Go back to the,
we're referencing.
It's there, it's just not darkened. When I do it in my software and have the hardscape, it changes the color, so the hue is a little bit different. But that, from the 11th, wrapping around to what they use as the front door, that's all existing. And that was existing when it was purchased. The back of the house and then the left side of the house that wraps around the pool, that's the proposed addition of the hardscape.
so that existing section, can you explain what that goes to? That goes to the front door and a side door?
But the garage, so the right-hand side as we're looking at it right now, that's the garage on the first floor.
Okay.
And then the driveway is out on the right-of-way. And then the walkway goes around and enters in the front door on the side of the property where the breezeway that connects the two buildings.
That makes sense.
Through the chair, just to clarify, the structure was, they requested a variance for the two-family dwelling, and then it was permitted and constructed as a two-family dwelling. It was financed as a two-family dwelling, and then subsequent to the city's involvement, it was then split after the fact, and then sold separately. And unfortunately, it's something that happens quite often because the lot split process isn't regulated directly by the city, and the property appraiser doesn't take our code into consideration because they're a separately elected body. So we have a lot of these two-family buildings that have been split into basically non-conforming lots.
Is that done by the current owner?
No, the deed is for just this property, so they purchased it this way.
If you had to estimate, how much is the walkway that goes towards the pump area? Is that much space? Do we have that as a hardscape? Is there any option in that space? There's probably not much.
I think it's approximately 3 feet wide. Actually, it says 3 feet 5 inches wide from the pool adjacent deck out to the pool equipment.
So you're about 80 square feet, give or take?
Approximately, maybe just a little bit less than that.
I think the condition says 300.
331 total that covered, that's the pool equipment pad, that walkway, and then the dark area that goes between the house and the pool, and then the edge of the pool that faces toward 11.
Any other questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, you may be seated for now,
Thank you.
and I will open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers cards?
We have one from Irene Grant.
Is Irene Grant here?
Yes.
You can approach the podium
All right.
and be sworn in by the clerk.
My 2 kids also sent in an email.
We'll read that into the record after public comment.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please state your name and address.
Irene Grant, 12911 Aberdeen North, Unit D.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And I'm speaking for my 2 kids that own Unit C and Unit D. They're right next door to the property, actually to the west. And I am the president, treasurer, and secretary of the HOA, as well as I live there, and I manage for my kids the raw property. I've been here since 2012. I've seen this property convert, and I've worked with John Atkins, who built the houses. The variance was first proposed. I talked to John Atkins as well as my neighbor, and we opposed the first request of building this because it was impeding the vision partially of the ocean, but also square footage. He was very nice and he worked with us, and we came to an agreement that he would reduce the square footage, and he quickly got back to the city hall to get that changed before we had our meeting. So we were fine. He was over the square footage. But we, as well as my neighbors, many of them opposed it, and were going to show up to the meeting. Apparently, there's been some snafu here because these plans and the square footage is not what the city did. I've got, I don't know where the mistake went, but the plan that I got, I guess from the pool contractor, shows that the square footage, the coverage is 44%. We never approved with John Atkins for the square footage to be anything more than 40. And I've got the documentation here to show up to the notice for variance, which we approved. I don't know if this is accurate, the plans, because it's not matching up with the cities at all. This would be the third variance request on this property that I've had appear to two of them. And while I was in agreement, and my neighbors, with the build job initially, I'm totally against this. This is not a necessity. You heard it from the pool contractor. It's for the enjoyment of the owners. I have a problem getting flooded, as well as the four of us, the 4-unit. We've had a cinder block after a hurricane come down our French drain that was built by the city. And we have an open culvert. It's just been
I'm sorry.
terrifying to see hurricanes come, and then we have more homeowners that want to take more permeation away from us in this area. We're on a driveway, we're on an alley to get into each of our driveways, and then it's this property here. And the water from hurricanes comes down the street, comes gushing down on our property, and the condo next to us, Surfside. It's all concrete driveway.
I'm so sorry to cut you off. I appreciate your comments. Your 3 minutes have come to an end. We will be reading the letters that were submitted to the city in public record, though. So thank you so much for your comments. Can we,
No more speakers cards, 2 emails. The first one is from Brittany Perez Grant, August 29th, 2023, to Jacksonville Beach City Council in reference to the variance request 111 North 11th Avenue to build a pool and decking. I strongly oppose this variance request. I authorize my mother, Irene Grant, to speak on my behalf in the meeting on September 6th, 2023. Thank you for your time. Brittany Perez Grant, 129 11th Avenue North, Jacks Beach. And then a second email regarding the variance request from 111 11th Avenue North. I wish to express my opposition beyond simply rephrasing the request as, quote, to dig a hole in the ground and fill it with water 200 yards from the ocean, end of quote. I must defer to the knowledge and expertise behind the original adoption of the Land Development Code. There are reasons why a certain percentage of the surface should remain permeable. To dispense with those reasons for a pool seems unwise to me. Deviating from the code should be reserved for more justifiable requests. As I cannot be present on September 6, 2023, I have discussed my reasoning with my mother, Irene Grant, and asked that she speak on my behalf. Regards, Thad Perez Grant, 129 11th Avenue North, Unit C, Jacksonville Beach, Florida, 32250. That's it.
thank you. Would the applicant or agent care to address any of the statements made during public comment?
Sure.
Thank you. I think just to reiterate, the nature of the hardship of the property being a substandard lot size and all things being equal, not trying to exceed what the lot coverage would be if it were a standard or close to standard lot. The second point I'd like to reiterate is that the swimming pool, as a coping-only pool without the hardscape, wouldn't require a variance. We wouldn't be standing here today for that. So those are the 2 items that I would like to reiterate, and I thank you guys for your time. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I actually have a question, if you, and I'm not sure if you're able to address this, but the comments made during the public hearing did reference something in our staff report, which is that the current lot coverage is 4.5% more than what was approved when they applied for a variance back in, I believe, 2021. Do you know what caused that extra 4% of lot coverage from what was originally approved?
I don't know. The information that we use to calculate the lot coverage as it exists came from the as-built survey that was provided to the homeowner when he purchased it. The only, well, I'm gonna speculate here, because that's my only speculation, is that the original lot coverage request may have been based on the 2-unit property going on the combined lots. Because when I looked at the lot coverage of the larger lot, because it's referenced on the survey that I have as well, it's much lower. So my speculation is that that was for the entirety of the 2 lots and not for the single lot that was left, or the smaller lot that was left when the split happened.
But through the chair, that's 100% accurate. If you, although it's hard to see, this was the original parcel. And you can see that this one received a much larger portion of that property. So their lot coverage is probably well below 40%. Theirs ended up being higher because the lot's smaller and the building's the same size.
But then why is there only one variance request?
Because it was built as a single unit. It was built as a 2-family dwelling with a breezeway in between. And then based on the deeds, it looks like the developer that built it immediately split it and sold it as 2 halves.
Okay.
Once they got their CO.
And the breezeway is still there?
Yes, it's spoken of, yes, the breezeway is still there.
Okay.
Up in that box, if that could be blown up, or I think you have part.
Not really.
It is a massive survey, but that box references all of the lot coverage for both lots in the survey that was. I did hand in a massive survey, but
It's not even clear
but that's, I think Mr. Popoli may have confirmed that my speculative idea of where that lot coverage came from.
Yeah, it's a little fuzzy, but I can kind of easily see it. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? You can be seated, and I will now close the public hearing and bring the item back to the board for discussion. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve DOA 23-100082. Based on the testimony and evidence provided, the request has met all the standards for variance as outlined in section 34-286 of the Land Development Code.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I struggle with, I don't think this is the best usable space. I mean, I think that you've got a pretty big outdoor kitchen on that 80 square feet you discussed. I mean, I'm not opposed to a pool, but I just think also if you shrunk the pool down, you pull the size of the deck down too. I just struggle with trying to prove that much. And they rent 5% over the rent of what was originally built.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you, Jeff. I think when it comes to criteria 5, you know, a pool with some decking is one thing. I understand maybe compared to a larger lot, it's not all that much paved space, but knowing the limitations they have on this lot, I don't know that we're meeting that criteria, that this is the minimum variance to make possible the reasonable use of the parcel.
I struggle supporting this motion.
Here's why.
Any other discussion? Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Owen Crowley,
Yes.
Jeff Trular,
No.
Todd Smith,
No.
John Moreland,
No.
Alexi Gonzalez.
No. Your request has been denied. Can we move on to the planning department report, please? If there is one. I think you just turned it off.
The next scheduled meeting will be on October, September 19th. September 19th, on Tuesday.
All right. If there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.